think that we both can, um, yes, I do believe that we both can control the slide as well. So, as you all know, Zoom continues to do some amazing updates and things like that. So, we'll be testing out a full facilitated session using slide control. Nevertheless, I'm really excited to be here this evening with you all. This session is really to give you all some insight into building a social enterprise. Just out of curiosity, how many people in the room believe that they are running a social enterprise? If you can put one in the chat, that would be great. So if you think and believe you're running a social enterprise, if you know you're running a social enterprise, put one in the chat. We'd love to see who's in the room. We'd also love to know if you have an idea of starting a social enterprise. You can put number 2 in the chat there. Let us know if you have an idea to run a social enterprise, put 2 in the chat. And number 3, if you're just here to learn about what you can do in this space. So number 1, if you're running a social enterprise. Number 2, if you are thinking about running one. And number 3, if you're just here to learn and see where the opportunities lie. So I'll give it about 30 seconds or less to see what's coming in there. I see some stuff coming into the chat. Thank you so much for your participation. So 1, 2, 3. 1, you're running one. 2, you're thinking about running one. And then 3, you're just here to really learn and see where the opportunities lie. So we're going to get started with our presentation. And so, again, just people will be coming in, but we do ask for a little bit of Zoom etiquette in terms of really supporting folks to have a successful event and opportunity for everyone to participate in different ways. If you can change your name to the name that you use to register for the tickets, it helps us to maintain awareness about who's in the room and to prevent any people that shouldn't be in the room not here with us. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hands or put the information in the chat. We'll be using the chat as well, as you can see already. There's no pressure, but if you want to come on camera so that I see Ryan's face, so it's like you're not talking to just black screens and stuff like that. It's totally fine. We understand that some people may be moving around. We'd love to see your face, love to have a conversation with you, and really being respectful of everyone here. If you're not speaking, keep your mic on mute, and we'll be good to go from there. And so just in honor and respect of the lands that we're working on, we want to just say thank you and pay tribute to the Indigenous community, ones who've been here before, ones that are currently here, and the ones that will be here in the future, knowing that these lands that we work on have deep history and great contributions that sometimes get overlooked, and even an opportunity for us to figure out how we can collaborate with Indigenous entrepreneurs. In our case, we do have some partners in that space and continue to learn and grow. So the invitation to everyone here is be aware of what contributions the Indigenous people have made, Black people have made, other people, other nations and races have made to this country. The reality is we will continue to need each other as these years go forth. So to dive right into the agenda for this evening, really a chance to meet Ryan and myself. We will do an overview of the funding opportunity that we're seeing that's coming down the pipeline. We're going to dive in very briefly, what is a social enterprise, and talk about next steps in terms of how we can help. So just to give a brief introduction about myself, I am a serial social entrepreneur, really passionate about youth entrepreneurship and really looking at sustainable ways in which we can continue to build and grow as a community in a sustainable way. My primary organization, Empowered for X, we focus on collaborative learning, growing, and building. We focus on 4 key areas. So we look at co-working, so places where people can come and work collaboratively, co-learning, so opportunities like this. And then we also talk about co-living. So we have opportunities with some of our partner organizations. I don't know if you all know, but there's an organization called Pomoja, and we have acquired 100 acres of land, and we continue to give people, and particularly the Black community, an opportunity to build generational wealth. And we focus on co-giving, really giving back to spaces and youth in particular that need support in that way. And Ryan will talk about the organization that we both co-founded along with some others called the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. I'm really excited just because at age 16, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I want to make a difference internationally and locally, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to continue to serve in that way. So just to give you a little bit more about Empowered for X, we exist to support entrepreneurs to help them start, build, grow, and scale their businesses. So we have learning opportunities as well as access to consultants to help you move the dial forward in your business. Regarding funding and access to grants, we've developed or coined the terminology DIY to modify. We talk about the shift going from doing it yourself. At that early stage, you have no time, and you may have you have lots of time and limited money. So you're like, I need to get it done for myself. And so we do free info sessions like this. So making sure that you get a ton of value and really work on capacity development to help you develop the skills for grant writing. And that's our Grant Hunter U. And along the spectrum, we have opportunities where you all can take advantage of doing things yourself while being supported with us, and moving all the way. The complete shift is modify, making others do it for you. And we raise our hands along with our team of grant writers and supporters to help to do the work for you, right? So we identify grants, we write grants, and apply on your behalf. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Ryan to introduce himself.
Awesome. Hold on. I'm going to see if I can see if this works. All right. And thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate you, and your presence is not lost on ourselves, myself and Chris Beth. For those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, but I also consider myself a serial social entrepreneur. I've started a few social enterprises, namely the Detailing Nights. So we provide mobile waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses or their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies. But what I'm most proud of with Detailing Nights is our youth entrepreneurship program. So we work with high school students, college students, and even those coming out of that are out of school and coming out of detention, to show them that they have the potential to start their own business. And I also run Service Kingdom, which is a social enterprise consultancy firm. Also Executives Power Up, which allows businesses that are ready to scale to get access to a C-suite team. So if you think of, you're probably the CEO or the executive director, but now who is running those other positions on the org chart? Your CTO, Chief Technical Officer, your CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, or your CFO is very important, as Chief Financial Officer. Getting access to a team at that C-suite level makes your business and your social enterprise that much more investable. So when you're ready to scale, Executives Power Up is there. And Black Panther's Cage, one of our secret projects that, think of Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, but with Black founders pitching to Black investors. But as I did mention, I am the co-founder of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, but also part of the Empowered for X business crew. And really, we just spend our time supporting entrepreneurs so that you can win. And when you win, I feel like everybody wins. Oh, let's see if this works. Did I do that or did you do that? Did I click it? All right, it's working. All right. So a little bit of history with the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We started just over 5 years ago, and really it was because there was a gap that we were seeing as an entrepreneur myself when we were ready to scale Detail Ignites and franchise it across Canada and into the US. We realized there weren't a lot of Black-focused business organizations to tap into to help with that mission that we had, and they didn't have it in their mandate to really scale up companies. So we brought 6 other entrepreneurs together, said, could we create an entity that sits down with an entrepreneur, figures out what stage their business is in, and helps them create a strategy to grow their companies exponentially. And thus, ACBN Canada was born. And over the past 5 years, we've been able to work with over 5,000 businesses in the community. Also, we're seeing about 71% of them are female entrepreneurs. But what I'm most proud of is the partnerships that we've been able to forge with other Black serving business organizations. So now there's over 40 across Canada. They created the Black entrepreneurship ecosystem. So whatever stage and whatever supports that your business needs, we're able to point you in the right direction. So again, lean on us to support you with wherever you feel stuck or whatever mission and whatever your vision is for your business. We're here to support you. So definitely utilize that. Let me see. One thing about ACBN, we definitely believe entrepreneurship is one of the best tools that we have for economic empowerment. I do believe that everybody should be an entrepreneur in some sense. Even if you're young, it's one of the best times to start a business. Or if you have a career or you're already working, still having a side hustle or additional income coming to the household can definitely help to build generational wealth. But we do the convening info sessions similar to this to really share notes, and everything that we do research wise, we want to be able to share, and all the opportunities that we find, we want to be able to share. So that's why we appreciate you so much for being present. And sometimes it's virtual, other times it'll be in person, but it's always about sharing the value and the information. But a big piece that we start to focus on is that access to funding. For ACBN, we even created our own micro lending program. So the micro loan that we have, we can do loans up to $25,000 in partnership with Alterna Savings, but we're always on the hunt for what other funding is out there. And one thing really quick to note, as we're talking about social finance and developing your social enterprise, the money for social finance is going to flow. And we're going to go deeper into the different types of money that's already flown. But if you think of the $100 million that flowed through these investment readiness program for social enterprises, we have to start to think, how much of that did we get access to and actually utilize? Now that close to 400 million is about to flow, we have to ask ourselves, are we prepared to take advantage of a percentage of that? And if not, that's the real reason why Chris Beth and I put on these trainings and these info sessions, is because we're not satisfied that that kind of money is flowing around us. We have to position ourselves and the community in front of that flow of money so that we can take advantage. Hold on, let me just go to the next slide. All right. And as I talk about funding, I like to just show our track record. So here's a snapshot of some of the funding that we've been able to get through ACBN. And you'll see it ranges from as low as $500 up to as much as over $1 million. And it ranges in types of funding. So it has grant competitions in here, or pitch competitions. There's also grants from the city, from the province, from the federal government, and also funding from corporations through sponsorships and different grants. So we like to show that whole spectrum of the types of grants, because one thing I always say about myself is I am not an academic grant writer, but I do consider myself to be a grant hunter. So all funding and supports that are out there that we qualify for, we make sure to get our applications in. And again, we might not hit all of them, but we definitely hit more than we missed. Well, not more than we missed, but we hit enough to be able to sustain the operations and start to grow. So this is where we want to help to position you so that you're able to get access to the different types of funding as well. And that's really where we get our joy from, is helping other organizations get access to funding that one, they might not have been aware of, and two, they might not have the time to actually go through the process of finding the grant, writing the grant, and if it doesn't go through, finding out why, writing it again, following up, building relationships with funders, and then eventually being successful. So similar examples like Rescue Youth International, helping them develop a social enterprise so they could take advantage of the investment readiness program and get access to $30,000. Custodia, which is on the other side of the spectrum, where Rescue is a nonprofit starting a social enterprise. Custodia is a for-profit that was running a social enterprise, and again, helping them get access to the investment readiness program. And New Life Project, where they're doing such great work, but not having the time to sit down and write grants, we were able to partner with them, identify the Supporting Black Communities Initiative, and they were successful with getting a grant. And we're continually working with them for different ideas on way they can grow their organization. Just before I touch on partners, I did see a hand raised. Did you want to ask your question, Natasha, if it was about something?
Yeah, I don't know. Y'all didn't say, do you mind questions throughout, or do you want to like wait till the end, or is there a question period?
Yeah, what do you think, Chris? Because if it's something specific to that slide, then I like them as they come.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and I know this is the last slide before we transition to the next thing, so you can definitely keep your hand up, and you can go for your question now, Natasha. That's totally fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was just about the funding you were just talking about. And I was wondering, what do you suggest in terms of when you're applying for grants, like, or what is your experience when folks are applying for grants? Do you find that folks applying for grants are getting like 50%? So you have to like put that into your strategy when you're applying, like, oh, we are hoping for this. This is our goal. So we're going to apply for this many, thinking we're getting this many, if that makes sense. Or are you just like, no, you're going to get it every single time? That's the attitude you should have.
Definitely.
You're going to manifest it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel if the application's in, there's a possibility you can get it. Because sometimes what happens is it's undersubscribed where not a lot of people are applying. So just by getting an application in, even if it's not perfect, you would get money because you're in the queue. But typically grants are oversubscribed. So you are being realistic with yourself to say like, hey, if I'm putting in, and if you look at my folder of the different types of grant opportunities, there's typically 20 to 30 that are on the go. So now out of that, if we hit even 10%, we know that we're going to get enough money to do our program, but we did apply for 30. So that's where it's like I do the volume game, not the sit down and do one perfect and make sure to get it game. So that's where, but we actually do sessions about grant writing once a month. So we'll definitely put that information. So we go a bit deeper into the actual process of grants. But thank you for the question. And as I go through, and again, if anyone else had questions, feel free to put them into the chat and then we'll definitely catch up with them after. As we go forward, definitely want to say thank you to our valued partners that have really helped shape the path so far and allowed us to really do the work that we do, ranging from Toronto Community Benefits Network that has supported us from the beginning. Shout out to Rosemary Powell there. Alterna Savings that has helped us really cement ourselves in the social finance space, allowing us to start our own micro lending program, which has allowed us to be front and center as this social finance has started to develop. And now we're seeing how money is going to be flowing. So we're going to be able to understand how to position entrepreneurs that are running social enterprises best. And one full circle, shout out to Montreal. I feel like there are versions in Quebec, Calabash, which is a cooperative of expert service providers, and ZSC, also business advisors that can support you on your journey. Dream Legacy Foundation, if you are running a tech-focused social enterprise or business, definitely want to plug into the supports that they have. And Sheridan Edge, which is the entrepreneurship discovery and growth engine. Sheridan's also my alma mater, so I always like to do a big shout out to them, but they run great programs to support entrepreneurs at various stages, and majority of it's free, so we like to be that bridge to the great work that they're doing. All right. So I don't know about y'all, but I get very excited when I see the type of funding that's coming down the pipeline for social entrepreneurship. When I've been running Detail Ignite since 2009, the concept of social enterprise really didn't start to materialize in around 2013, but still a lot of our businesses are already social enterprises and we just don't know it. But today and over the last few years, it was 2018 when the federal government announced that they're going to be supporting social enterprises in the social finance space with $800 million. And that was unprecedented because typically social enterprises weren't getting the funding that they needed. You either were a for-profit or a nonprofit, and everything in between didn't really have a place. But now with this type of social finance fund, and sorry, so it was 800 million, but 50 million of it, they created a grant program. So that was called the Investment Readiness Program. So they were supporting social enterprises with grants so that they could get prepared for the social finance fund. Now, the social finance fund has $755 million that's going to be deployed, but not as traditional grants. These are going to be investments. So now they selected wholesalers that are going to manage the funds, but they're going to be looking for opportunities to invest this money. So like I said earlier, this money is going to flow, but it's only going to flow to those that are prepared and ready, because it's not just similar to a grant where you write an application and on paper, people are reviewing it and figuring out what's the best idea. It's now they want to see viable businesses that are investable, and that like the investments that they're going to make are repayable, but they're going to be a lot more favorable and supportive of the social finance space, like social enterprise space. But still, we have to provide solid business cases in order to get access to this funding. And
Ryan, if I can just add one thing
yes,
before
yes.
you go on to the next slide. So as Ryan mentioned with that, the social finance fund in particular, it is a more of an investment lending type of opportunity to grow your business, right? So imagine if you got access to 100,000 and you knew what to do in order to make that 200,000 or 250,000 or $150,000 more. You now have access to it because you're a social enterprise. The other things, that's one funding opportunity that we're seeing. But in particular, over the past couple years and even more recent, even down to community grants. So we find grants at the community level, we find grants at like the private sector level, we find grants at the provincial, municipal, federal levels. And what we're seeing, more and more grants are asking, yes, tell us about your project, but they're also asking, what is your impact? What is the sustainability behind your initiative? And this goes for for-profit as well as non-profit, right? So from the for-profit perspective, it's like, yeah, we're able to do a positive cash flow, but we also have impact, right? So these are some of this is part and parcel the reason why we're saying as organization, it's not about greenwashing. We do not support that here at our organization, but is it possible to shift? Is it possible to start? Is it possible to really implement? Because as we go through the next couple of slides, you will see that it has to be a documented process that you can specifically articulate your impact as you move forward. So Ryan, you can go ahead.
Yes, and I appreciate that, Chris Beth. One thing that I've been saying a lot is social enterprise, social finance, social this, social that. But what really is a social enterprise? And the definition that we put up on the screen talks about it is revenue generating and it does have a positive impact in the community. So if you look at the full spectrum where you can either register your business as a for-profit or you can register as a nonprofit, from the nonprofit side, you already have a strong community impact. But when you start to generate your own revenue, that becomes your social enterprise. But it goes beyond just let's say a t-shirt sale or a bake sale where you're doing something, maybe a fundraiser, and it's secondary to the grants and the fundraising that you have to do. When you actually start to generate revenue and that entity can stand on its own as a business, but the profits from it are supporting the work of the nonprofit, that is a social enterprise on the kind of nonprofit sense. On the other side of the spectrum, as a for-profit business, you already have a business that's generating revenue, but now you start to operate as a social enterprise when the impact that you have in the community is measurable and it's derived from the profits of the business. There's varying, I would say, varying scales of the percentage of the profits that do need to go back into the community cause. Typically, if it's below 10%, that's more considered a corporate social responsibility, like CSR policies. When it gets closer to that 40, 50, 60%, that you're taking purposeful profits and investing it into the community, that's when you start to operate as a social enterprise. So that's the spectrum. Where you land on the spectrum, that's where we do our coaching, and we support you to understand where exactly you are and how do we get to that sweet spot of the social enterprise. Oh, I might have clicked it twice. You gonna bring it back? All right. And a big question that I get especially when I'm consulting with nonprofits, is why start a social enterprise? And again, one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the businesses in our community is that we're already running social enterprises, but we just didn't know the term for it. So you're running a business, but you're also, let's say, doing free workshops, or the money that you make subsidizes so that you can give your services or products cheaper to those that can't afford it. Those are social enterprises in the general sense. But now for a nonprofit that's trying to decide to start a social enterprise, it really comes from the financial sustainability of the organization, and having unrestricted funds. A big piece of when we're getting grants and we're getting funding, we're now locked into what that funder wants us to do with the money. Even though the mission's aligned, a lot of times there's not a lot of flexibility with how to spend the money. So now when you need funds that you can use how you see fit to use the money, that's where a social enterprise can come in, because you're generating your own revenue. Now you have those profits and you can decide where to spend that money. And it becomes more sustainable because you're operating it as a strong business. It's not a side of the desk project where you're kind of doing it on the side as a hobby. It is a business that can generate revenue, sell a service or a product that brings in money that you can now scale up so that you can do more community work. So I am a big proponent of social enterprise, and that's why we consult with nonprofits to make sure that having a social enterprise is part of their fund development strategies. But of course, on the for-profit side, making sure that businesses understand it's not all about getting money at all costs. It's now, how are you reinvesting that into the community? And the more purposeful you can be with that, the stronger the social enterprise would be. So we are big fans of the sweet spot of social enterprise, and we either would love to help you get there, or if you're already there, we want to help see that enterprise grow. So as I mentioned, key requirements, definitely mission driven. That's where typically nonprofits already have that mission that they're working on, but they're missing the sale of goods and services. On the for-profit side, they have the sale of goods and services, but they need to make sure that that mission aligns with positive community impact. And I did talk about that 50% gross revenue. It isn't, I would say, in stone that you have to take 50% of your profits and put it back into community building, but that's typically, we've seen some provinces use that as a guideline, so it's a good place to start. All right, and again, the giving back piece is being able to measure the positive impact that you're having in the community. It's one thing just to say you're a social enterprise, and yes, we spend money on, or we use our profits for helping youth in the community, for example. But if it's something that's not tangible, or doesn't have a strong impact, it's difficult to now get investment for a social enterprise, because that's what the funders are going to be looking for. They want to see that you're able to measure. And so that measurement and that impact, if you're able to grow the social enterprise, you're going to be able to grow the impact. So you have to be able to measure that. And this is where typically it's verified with your business's mission. If you may know about the B Corp certification, that's an example of a social enterprise certification where they take you through various questions. And at the end of it, if you score there's a certain minimum score to get certified, then you would actually include social enterprise language in your articles of incorporation. So financial documents and impact measurement, it all comes together to tell the story of your social enterprise, which helps you now get additional investment. And also we've seen that with getting the grants in the past as well. All right, so the social enterprise business models, I think was that your zone, Chris Beth?
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you so much, Ryan. I want to see if there's any questions. And again, feel free to put the questions in the chat as you all have them. So we will keep going along the way. So just understanding that, as Ryan said, there is no formal a social enterprise must look like this. You have the ability to be creative, you have the ability to design the type of enterprise that is going to do at least three main things, right? So the first one is it is going to have a positive impact, whether that be socially or environmentally. So at the core, the mission is I'm going to do business for good. Ryan oftentimes uses a terminology. You didn't use it today, enterprising for good. So the mission is there. So whether that is environmental impact or social impact, there must be something. The other one is looking at the profitability of it, right? So really we talked about looking at the entity. Yes, on nonprofit from that realm, we may be dependent on grants and funding at one point, but truly when we talk about a social enterprise, it is an entity that is self-sustained. So, whether or not you get that grant, you don't have to close your doors. But the beauty about social enterprise and what we're seeing in this economy that's coming down, whether you're on the for-profit side or the non-profit side, you can tap into other funding sources like grants, like other investments to help you do more good. And then the third one is just really looking at, the purpose, that impact, but it is not something that we, as Ryan showed in his example earlier, it's not a corporate social responsibility. We're gonna, pollute the environment and maybe plant some trees on the back end. We're going to make sure that it is part of the DNA of the organization. So really and truly starting with what problem are we solving for? So we encourage you all to figure out the desirability. So looking at that impact, right? Where can we make a positive impact? And the piece is around the profitability, which we talked about. It is a good or service for sale. So who is your customer? We need to add that to the equation as well, right? Who is the customer? You must have a customer that's willing to pay for the goods and services. So really, when you're thinking about establishing the business or the entity, is this feasible? We oftentimes encourage doing viability tests or feasibility tests. So you're not going to spend a whole 100,000 on an idea that you have. What's something that you can do to test, to validate that there is a market, there is demand, you have a strategy to implement to get to your targets accordingly, viable as well. So these 5 points here. So is my business venture desirable? Is it feasible? Is it viable? Is it impactful? Is it ethical, right? So can you answer those questions as you're thinking about your social enterprise? So I'll go to the next one. So a tool that we use, you might be familiar with it, is the business model canvas. We love to encourage people. Yes, you can show me that 40-page business plan. If it is the tool that you're using to help drive your business, great job. We can definitely look into that. But if for people just starting out looking to test an idea, we say, let's get it all on one sheet of paper. Can you note it down? We can identify the problem. We can identify the customers. We can identify the marketing strategy, what is required, looking at the impact throughout that process. So if you're not familiar with the business model canvas, it is a tool that helps the guide in that way. So just looking at some of the different types of social enterprise, employment based. So I oftentimes like to give the example, well, Ryan is always my best example. So Ryan, I'll let you just talk about detailing nights and what you do with your social enterprise, and then I'll share another.
Absolutely. So we are a mobile wireless car cleaning company. So the business, the services that we sell is going to people's houses and cleaning their cars. Now, we also employ from a segment of the population that we've seen has high unemployment rates, which are youth in our community, specifically Black youth. But also we work with youth that are coming out of detention. So the employment side of it, employing those that are having difficulty finding jobs, makes us be considered an employment social enterprise. And we also do the teaching, so the workshops on entrepreneurship, so that youth in the community can create their own jobs and become job creators instead of just looking for a job. So we do hire from that segment, but we also coach and create entrepreneurs as well.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. And I love the example. I've had the opportunity to work in detailing nights. I still support the organization. And another one here in Brampton, a lady has a daughter who has Down syndrome. And as you know, employment for people with Down syndrome is very high. And she discovered that when she was baking with her daughter, she would come alive and being able to, communicate well and serve and develop these things. And so she started with her daughter a cupcake store, Christina's Tortera's shop. I think it's Tortina's shop. But the cool thing is now the shop employs people with Down syndrome as well as those on the autism spectrum, those that have disabilities that are oftentimes underemployed, and they're providing a great employment opportunity there. So in that case, it's not necessarily giving back or giving money to another entity. Baked into her business model, she's hiring the people, the societal challenge, the people that are challenged in the organization and paying out that way as well. So that would be an example of an employment one. There are other cultural social enterprise, so entities that are established to help artists. And we know sometimes artists are they say struggling or trying to find a way, footing all of these things. And that creative gene may not be able to help them figure out how to navigate the business, but there are entities that support those types of spaces. And then environmental social enterprises as well. So an example, like what Ryan is doing, we have things like e-bikes. I think I saw Evans in here as well. But really an opportunity. Again, these are just on a super high level. And I wanted to just shout out Ryan, and if you can just speak to it a little. We actually have a partnership with Sheridan College in partnership, funded by the federal government to support Black entrepreneurs getting into the clean tech space. So that would count. If you're interested in learning, Ryan, if you could just speak to that opportunity there a little, that would be great.
Yeah, as we talk about funding that's going towards certain industries, the clean tech industry, we've seen the federal government want to invest over $18 billion. So if you have ideas and if you even are just interested to see what that industry is like. That's why we created this certification with Sheridan College, to get that awareness to our community, to say this is an industry, the clean tech industry, that we need to learn more about, because a lot of investment is going to be going towards better solutions to reduce climate impact. So that's where environment social enterprises, there's going to be big investment into that as well. And the clean tech certification with Sheridan is a way that we're introducing people to the space. And then eventually we want to see more businesses started so that you can take advantage of those investments as well.
Awesome. And I will put the link to that in the chat so folks have it there. So just moving along. So in some examples of social enterprises as well, we shared some examples before, but really a chance, let me close this, a chance to look at some other social enterprise establishments that you can explore, right? Credit unions. Ryan's a big fan of credit unions, so am I. So those as a great example there. So I think the main thing when we talked about social enterprise, I spoke about just being able to greenwash. So you're greenwashing, for those of you that don't know, it's kind of just saying that we do something, writing it on paper, but in actual fact, we're not doing it, right? And so one of the things that is going to come in, as we know, according to CRA, there isn't any specific business say I am social enterprise, but there are people advocating to get those type of designation for companies, right? So if that comes down the pipeline, it is in the US, all of these things already, but if that comes down the pipeline, even more so stricter on what a social enterprise does. And that means you don't have to do reporting on it. So Ryan, and you saw on the slide, a 50% threshold, I believe it's Quebec. That's why we've put that, because Quebec is identifying and acknowledging social enterprise, and they have put a threshold. At least 50% of your revenue is going towards supporting that impact that you've established, and being able to generate funds in a sustainable way so that you can take advantage of additional grants and funding opportunities in that way. So when it comes to impact measurement, we are looking at impact in 4 key areas. So we already talked about it will have to be in your bylaws. Remember, we're looking at financials, all of these things. So the first one is the social impact. So Ryan, you're saying you're eco-friendly. How are you tracking that, right? That's what is going to be asked. How many, you're saying, okay, you're not using 100 liters of car water to wash a car, but you're using something. What's the difference between that and that? How many cars are you washing a year? How can you quantify your impact in that way, right? The other one is the customer value. Remember, this is not your traditional nonprofit, and this is not your traditional business. So the social impact is there. Now we're talking about the customer. Who is your customer? Being able to articulate who cares about the goods and service that you're producing, because guess what? We need more of those people to buy into our vision so that we can continue to do good along the way. And then the third one is really looking at your financial sustainability, right? The numbers tell the story. When they look at your spreadsheets, income statements, things like that, they'll say, okay, you run an employment social enterprise. How many people did you hire? How many, where did the money go? Where are you giving the money to, right? And then going deeper, it is about the operational efficiency, right? If we're not running a good business with systems and people in that way, it brings it into question here. So what are you tracking? And we look at these 4 key areas here. So I'll pause for a second to see if there's any questions from anyone based on the things Ryan and I have mentioned, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I did see one talking about what are the structural impacts on already existing nonprofit and charities when adapting to social enterprise model.
Hey, that's a great question. And one of the things that I do say for an established organization looking to test or looking to develop and establish a social enterprise, in particular nonprofits, I oftentimes invite them to test it out. So I'm not saying go and transform your entire organization and disrupt everything. Perhaps starting an initiative within your nonprofit to say, we are going to establish a business entity that is going to support us with addressing the social or environmental issues that we want to address while generating us revenue. So that's how we start. But then when you get established, examples that I like to give, it's like the Salvation Army and the thrift stores, right? It's like the Habitat for Humanity and the restores. So now the nonprofit was able to test and say, hey, we got a business. So now we're going to create and fully establish another entity that's going to be feeding money back to the parent organization, right? So those are some of the examples and the pathway for nonprofits in particular, because you're already resource constrained in some ways sometimes. So it's now, okay, we want to start something new, but we have to test for viability of it. Right? So that's a great question. Anyone else?
I didn't see any others in the chat. Was there anyone else with a question that came to mind before we go on? I think you're good.
Okay, so just diving right in, we, Ryan, myself, and our team are very excited to be able to help people on this journey, because we understand that shift. You're running a nonprofit and you're now saying, okay, I already see the government asking me, how am I going to be sustainable? You're running a for-profit and you're like, I know I could do better business. How can I do that, right? And what we have done is put together a 5-day initiative that whereby training a challenge to say, look at what you want to create and working alongside us. I believe the dates are not updated here. So let me just pull this up. But basically a chance to, so we've done the challenge before, and lots of positive feedback and support as people are moving along. There are those that we are still working and supporting as they develop their social enterprise. I'm just gonna pull this up and I will just drag this over here. So this is our website, Empowered for X, on the training. I'll make sure the link to this is in the chat as well. Yeah, so the challenge, as I mentioned, it is a 5-day challenge. I'll scroll up a little. Yeah, so we're looking at September 18th to the 22nd. It is 5 days. We meet with the entrepreneurs that take advantage of this opportunity to come in anywhere from spending 2 hours with us where they get a chance to do some Q&A, all the way to a 1 hour. Hey, I just want to listen in and follow up with questions after the fact. It is done on Zoom, and we stream live to Facebook. But the main objective of this challenge, we bring in subject matter experts to help you check your social enterprise. You got questions, we want to be able to answer your questions in that way. You are ready to get started. We want to help you identify an idea, move that, and identify an idea, understand the marketing behind that. Remember, you need a customer. And I'm not so much talking to the for-profit folks, it's my non-profit folks that sometimes struggle. You need a customer. So who's paying for what you have to offer? So this page just talks about some of the benefits and learning objectives. So you can see here, how to clarify your social enterprise, looking at the communications, as I mentioned, around that. We're going to be looking at impact measurement, how, like, what do you need to be tracking? And you learned some of that here today, but diving deeper in those very key topics, right? And a chance to read a little bit about Ryan's and my story on this page as well. Really, I think we ended up when Ryan and I were talking about our journey as social entrepreneurs, somewhere along our stories, we heard you were fired, right? And that really gave us an opportunity to, step outside of our nonprofit. Or in my case, I was fired from a nonprofit. Part of the reason the funding ran out, right? And my story. But really, from that opportunity, taking advantage of stepping into entrepreneurship in a significant way, but really looking at how we can not only support the organizations that we're running to do good, and we've talked about some of the impact, but really looking at how we can bring this message to others. So the funding that we have received, we've been able to bring the knowledge, bring the communication and the supports to the community. And this is one way that we do that. And we're partnered with other subject matter experts, as I've said before. It's never, as I talk about that DIY to modify, it's never one person that you're getting. You're getting an entire team to support you. And Zara is a CPA, and we talk about that financial piece. Is this thing viable? Is this thing any good, right? And one of the cool things, Zara is the founder of Social Venture Circuit, which also helps people develop their social enterprises as well. And worked, Ryan, give me the name of the organization she worked with.
Under the United Way with Toronto Enterprise Fund.
Yes, the United Way Enterprise Fund. And the unique thing about her, for the past number of years before now, she was really focused on employment-based social enterprises. So you're going to be surrounded with some really, I'll say, heavy hitters, people that are doing it and people that are doing it well. So over the 5 days, and this will kind of give you a breakdown, really looking at clarifying the social enterprise, looking at the idea, then stepping into the business model. And we go back to that business model canvas, looking at the marketing. How are you going to be marketing this entity to the world? We talked about impact measurements on day 4. And the last thing is about testing your business idea, right? Do you have a methodology set up whereby you can test to see if this thing works? As the way that and the story that I like to share, true story, I worked at Sheridan College as a business advisor and program administrator there for entrepreneurs. And one of my clients that came to me at that time, and our team, they had spent over $100,000 on a business idea nobody wanted to use for free, right? Think about that. Years and a lot of money. They remortgaged their house, all of those things, and nobody wanted to use the tool. And so the invitation, they came to us asking, help me. But the truth is they missed the mark. And unfortunately, I was not able to help nor the team. But the biggest thing is there was no market. They never tested. They never once even went out and asked people, what do they want? Right? They just had a good idea, thinking my idea is the next thing like sliced bread. And, it was not, right? I think the market spoke for itself. So when people ask, is my idea good? I say, let's go test it, right? The market will tell you if it is good or not. So we are inviting everyone on this call, and you could read about some of the testimonials that we've had with other people we've helped through this challenge. a chance for you to join the challenge. It is a VIP option as well as the general admission. It is $297 plus tax, or $97. But really the value here is what you all do next, right? You're going to spend a week intense with us, and we're then going to be working with you all to be able to successfully navigate this space called social enterprise. And the cool thing is, when you participate, and because we're not saying just show up and take the knowledge, we want to see you do the work. You get access to enter into for a micro grant of $500 for those that have, hey, I have an idea, or I have an entity that's running, and over the next 30 days, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to see an impact. I'm going to capture data, and then I'm going to move forward, right? So for the people that not only say they're going to do it, but actually show up and do the work, we have some grants available. And the goal is, by the next time the programming becomes available, which is what we're sharing here, and I'll just capture that and put it in the chat. So that's September 18th to the 22nd. You know, we're hoping to have more than one $500 grant available to folks there. So I will pause for a second. I know we've gone a little over time, but just a chance to get some feedback from everyone.
And just as people are, if you want to put up your hand so that we can see if you had a question, one thing that I really realize as we do these challenges and these trainings is this money is going to go out, and there's not going to be a lot of strong social enterprises to choose from. So typically with grants, their competition is very strong because everybody can write what they can do onto paper, and then loan review committee or grant review committees have to figure out, okay, which idea is best. When we're now in the social enterprise space and in the investment realm, this social finance fund where it's investments into social enterprise, I am predicting there's not going to be a lot of competition. If you're able to show that you have a strong business that has a strong community impact, you're going to stand out from all of the other businesses that don't have that strength. So now with this training, it's really to say everything that becomes available, you are now prepared. By all means, whatever you're working on now, when the funding does get released and flows out, you can apply just as you are. But I feel with our support, you're going to put yourself in a position to increase the probability of getting funding. It's so difficult to grow our businesses with our savings and with our bank accounts and with our credit cards. Now we have access to leverage capital that wants to see your social enterprise grow. It wants to see more social enterprises enter the space and be successful. So we have to tap into this. And so one thing I know, ACBN, we're working towards being an intermediary of the funding as well. So if we look at those that have actually gone through training and strengthened their social enterprise, you're going to have a leg up than a person that is just going on their merit without getting social enterprise training. So that's where we're really excited about being able to put this on, because it's before the opportunity. A lot of times opportunities come out and then we have to scramble to get prepared. Now we're going to get prepared before the opportunity is ready. And once it's ready, we can hit the ground running. I did see a hand up for Natasha, if you wanted to go ahead.
Me again. You started to get into it there. I think for me anyways, as having a nonprofit, that is the pressure, is there's these grants that come out and then there's this like deadline that comes up real quick. And if you don't have your grant like pretty much written, you're rushing. So I think what you're alluding to is that you anticipate there's some funds coming under this social enterprise stream. And do you have an idea, like a timeline for that? Because for us specifically, I don't know if there are other folks in the same situation. Like it's something that we would be starting and have to kind of craft from the beginning, and that takes time. And if, I don't know, the funding's coming next week or in a month from now, it's like, you're not going to be ready, right? So I think like this it's something that I didn't realize the social enterprise, like there's a name, because this is what we've talked about internally. Like there has to be a way that we can make money to fund what we're doing. Like there's stuff we know that people would buy our service, if you will, our product kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting that this is exactly what you're talking about. But it's still having, like, we need to formulate the business plan, right? We need to be able to put that together properly. And being someone that doesn't have a lot of experience, it's like, how do you do that and get support to do that? And is it even going to be in the right timeline?
And that's where the preparation factor of it puts us in a great position, because like you said, a lot of times we don't know the process. So to give you an example of how this is going to roll out, so the government put together 755 million. That money is going to go to what they call wholesalers. So those wholesalers are now, there's 3 of them, and they decide on an intermediary that disperses the money. So the wholesalers were just announced, and right now the wholesalers are working on picking the intermediaries. So let's say that takes till the end of the year. Those intermediaries now are going to have the criteria of how to get the investment. So for example, ACBN, we're going through interviews to say, hey, we want $2 million to be able to invest. So by January, now ACBN is going to create our criteria to invest that $2 million into social enterprises. So you're 2 steps ahead. You're now getting trained to say, hey, business plan ready, business model, we've tested it, it can make money. Now when it launches in the new year, you can apply and say, this is what we've done. Instead of January hits and you now hear, okay, you need a business plan, you need traction. And it's like you have to create the traction out of thin air. We're already behind the 8 ball. But because we're being able to do the training now, it puts us in position to say, hey, we're going to be ready when this money flows out instead of trying to play catch up.
Yeah, so that's perfect. I'm sorry, I have one more question. If anyone else, and then I'll
Yeah.
stop. So can you just clarify for me, like grant versus investment? Investment, the way I understand it, is like you got to pay it back or a portion of it back. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the previous cycle was the investment readiness program. So
Right.
those were grant tools. So people that were in the idea phase of a social enterprise or already operating could get a grant to kind of fine tune. And then when this investment, the social finance fund comes out, they would have been able to apply for it, but again, apply for investment. So the grant portion that completed, and now they're in the investment portion where it's going to be repayable. So they are working on some, I would say, what's the word? It's like unique types of investment. So it might not be traditional 10% loan and you have to repay it. I've heard where like investments are given, let's say it's 100,000, and instead of a certain percentage return, if you hit your marks, then you can repay less, or it converts into like half grant, similar to what they did with the SIBA loan. I'm not sure if you remember, the government gave 40,000. If you paid it back on time, you only had to pay 20,000. So 20,000 of it was forgiven. So things like that I've heard kind of put out there, but think of it as an investment that you have to repay back so that the funder gets a certain percentage return. So now to reverse engineer, the intermediaries have to invest money to get a return to now pay back the wholesalers, and the wholesalers have to show the government we got the money back and made X percentage on it. And one thing that I did forget, so when I say 755 million, the wholesalers that are chosen, they actually have to match that money 2 to 1. So we're actually talking about closer to $2.1 billion in money that's going to flow through this social finance fund over the next 5 years. So it's not just the 755 million, it's actually, well, times 3, yes, 2.1 billion that is going to be in this pool of funds available. So, and the numbers sound massive and they sound big, but it's all about what do you need to amplify your work? The money, I believe, is going to be there. It's now, are we prepared to unlock that money? And that's why we're here to really support you. Because as a person that runs a social enterprise, I am 100% go, and that's it gets tricky because I run ACBN. We want to be able to administer on one side of the fence, but I also am an entrepreneur that runs a social enterprise that wants to tap in to this money that had never existed before. So I might have to choose a side. So we'll see how that lands, but I know this money is really it's destined for the work that you're already doing. We just have to be prepared for it. And real quick check, wanted to see, I didn't see anything else in the chat. Were there other questions? Oh,
Hi everyone.
yes.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, if you're already registered, right, you have your articles of incorporation as a nonprofit organization, there is still leeway for you to transition into a social enterprise, right? Like, or do you have
Yes.
to start the whole process over again?
No, so there's no legal structure for social enterprise. So you're not able to register as a social enterprise. So if you're already a nonprofit, it's now the business idea that you have. And like Chris Beth was saying, you can now operate it and test it, earn money, and the money goes to the nonprofit. At a certain threshold, they do encourage you to have that business become its own entity, because if it makes a certain amount of money, then it kind of grows beyond the nonprofit. Because remember, nonprofits are not taxed on profit. So if the social enterprise starts to kind of get big, the government's like, it has to kind of shift, right? But initially it can just operate and then the money goes back to the nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and that's why we also invite test the idea, test the model, test what you're working on, and then transition accordingly. We also recommend you having that power team, right? On your power team, you should have an accountant. If you don't have one, if you need one, we have accountants that specialize in this space, working with nonprofits, working with social enterprises. And then the other power person that we look to is making sure that you have your legal in order as well. Mm-hmm. Really just looking at ways to make sure that you're moving in that right direction. And as you're operating, the good thing is the documentation, right? This is where we come back to how are you tracking the impact? What are you doing? And could it be verified, right? So yes, you have your articles of incorporation or your documentation already, but over the years, as your business, as your organization or business have been growing, you can go back and say, we've done these things, which again, there is no legal structure in Canada, but based on the funding and the grants and different opportunities that are coming, they're asking you to produce those documentation, right? To show us what you have done, right? So that's why we're encouraging you all, to one, get organized. And this challenge that we've put together, as Natasha is saying, if you've never done it before, this week together will help clarify, give you some guidance and beyond, right? As I said, we're not just working with you for the week. The goal is take the learning, implement the learning. We're going to track and work with you over that additional 30 days beyond. But really it is about you starting strong and building momentum accordingly.
Okay, was it a one-time fee? I know you guys put up the bundle fee. It was a one-time fee?
Yeah, yes, it is a one-time fee. So for the week challenge in the VIP room, it is $297, and as I mentioned, that's VIP. Basically, an hour before the training starts, you come with all of your questions and you ask the questions. You meet with the facilitators, different things like that, and then we go into that hour. For those that are in the VIP room, you have the benefit of the sessions going on, live Q&A as well there. And then in the Facebook group, it's $97. And you're just logging in at the time. It streams live to the Facebook group, and if you have questions, you can put it in there, and then at the end of the challenge, you get access to the recording for a time period and different things like that. So yes, one-time fee for the week. Then that week again is September 18th to the 22nd. And then beyond that, we are here to work with you to work and get the stuff going. And so that could look like additional consulting services. If you need to get in contact with an accountant, we have accountants on the roster, legal, all of those things, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So yes, I do know we're over time. So final check if there was any final questions. Other than that, I'm looking forward to going through the week with you. The link is in the chat so that you can join. Again, really, there's two options. There's the money's gonna flow and we try our best to do it on our own, or the money's gonna flow and we can do our best to be prepared. And really, that's the mission that Chris Beth and I have taken on with the full Empowered Forex team and the team that is experts in social enterprise to make sure that you're prepared so that you've done all you can to give yourself the best probability of accessing this money. I know I love to be prepared. And as I said, I hunt for all money and anything that's available, but use the training and the ability to improve your chances instead of just winging it. So I might hunt and just apply for a lot of things, but definitely with precision and learning from past experiences. So we want to share that experience with you because we've seen a lot of these funding opportunities come and go. And each time you can fine tune what you do to make sure it's better. So I'm looking forward to the week with everyone. And Natasha, I did see your hand go up. You can go ahead.
Okay, last question, I swear.
It's all good.
I see that y'all offer a lot of services, and I'm assuming there's different packages or bundles, but if you wanted to purchase like one, so for example, with grant writing, could you just say, you know what, I just want you to grant write X amount of grants? Like, can you do that? Or, you know, is that like something that's an option?
Is yes to all of the above. We do customized services and the grant writing. It's really cool. As Ryan said, once a month we try to identify some key grants. We may not find something specific to you unless you say, hey, this is my company. Can you do some research ahead and see what comes out? So we've done that as well. But if you're looking to bring us on as your grant writing team, we do those as well, where we can be contracted for the year, writing 10 grants plus for folks. Individual.
I probably can't afford y'all yet, but you know, one or two.
No, individual ones as well. And our grant writing services range anywhere from 500 all the way to 3,000, and it just depends on the type of grant, right? So typically hiring grants are work, but not as much work. But one of the cool things, and I share this a little bit, we really love to see the capacity of the organization built. So we built a program called Grant Hunter U. It is $22.97, and basically we call it the grant writing blueprint. It teaches you, it asks you all the tough questions, and you get a chance to verify with us. So when that next grant comes, you're not kind of scrambling to say, what do I have to put in there? You have it, right? So that's why we call it the blueprint. And then you customize. The big thing, sometimes people just copy and paste, and where it's like, not like that. We say, know the funder, get to do some research. So you get to understand what's in their mind and heart. And then you could take what you've written and now customize it accordingly, right? So we really are here to see our entrepreneurs in our community succeed. And I'm happy to connect with you one-on-one if you have specific questions about our services. And definitely through the website, you can reach out that way as well.
That's great. Thank you.
And not a problem.
Our pleasure.
If you wanted to, because I found you guys on Eventbrite. I'm sure you guys have like a newsletter or something, so we can like keep in the loop of like the grant writing and keep up to date with what's going on with you guys instead of like going on Eventbrite.
I do believe there is a link to our newsletter on our website. But yes, we're oftentimes sharing the grants that we are seeing available, and just stay connected. And it's great to know that you found us on Eventbrite as well. So that's to join our newsletter. It goes out every Friday. Things that we're finding, and really an opportunity to promote your business as well. We do have a section there. If there's something that's coming up that you're wanting to share, definitely reach out to us.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you everyone for being here. You will get access to the recording as well as the deck that was shared. We do look forward to seeing you in the challenge in September 18th. Really and truly, if you know, $297 might seem like a lot, but the value that you walk away at the end is going to pay you dividends, right? Not only in the business that you run today, but what your business could be down the road as well. And you know, there's options as well to get into the room, the $97. You're able to get access to the content, and you'll see in both spaces at the end of the challenge, we are giving you a chance to do the work. Don't just take the knowledge, do the work. And we have opportunities for access to a micro grant there of $500. So every little bit, and Ryan, you know this, we know this, helps and counts. So
Yes.
we're ready to put our money where you know you're showing up to do the work and support you on your journey as well. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that showed up here tonight, and we look forward to staying in contact with you.
Right. Have a good rest of the night. Thanks again.
Bye.